Happy Monday! Welcome back to Drinking by My Shelf. My name is Emma and this is the book addiction tag. So this is a tag that was first created on a blog by the blogger Stormy Reads and was then adapted for BookTube by the booktuber Steph's Romance Book Talks. So I will link both of those originals below. But now let's get on with the questions. Question number 1, what is the longest amount of time you can comfortably go without picking up a book? It ain't long, I'm telling you that. No, I have definitely been known to go like 2 full days without picking up a book and like not particularly noticing. But beyond that, if I've gone like 3 days without picking up a book, I start to feel like something is wrong. Usually I read every day, but sometimes life gets in the way and I can go like 2 or 3 days without picking up a book. But by the end of that 3rd day, my skin is feeling itchy, like I know something's missing. I'm sure I have gone longer than that, but not in the recent past and not comfortably. The question said comfortably. Question 2 is how many books do you carry on your person at any time? But it then says in brackets, physical or device. So like on my device is infinite, right? But I always have my phone with me and I have the Kindle app on my phone and I have Scribd on my phone. So I always do have like infinite books with me, and I have an actual Kindle that I would take with me. I assume I only got my Kindle after lockdown, so it's not like I've really been going anywhere to test that out, but I'm sure I would bring it. But I do remember from before, I never left the house without a book. Anywhere I go, I will have a book in my bag because you don't know what's going to happen. Like if I'm going on a train, I definitely need a book. But even if I'm just going to the shop for some more wine, you don't know how long that queue is going to be. Maybe you're going to need a book. Like I would never go anywhere without at least one book. And if it's going to be a long journey, then definitely bring 2 because you might finish or not like the first one and DNF it. You need another. I've been known to take 3 books just for a plane ride before. Question 3 is, do you keep every book you buy or receive, or are you happy to pass them on to make space for more? This is definitely an answer that has changed for me recently. I used to really want to own every book I'd ever read. That was like a mission for me. I wanted to have a collection. Whether or not I liked the book, I wanted to keep all of them. But, you know, I lived in tiny flats. I realised that wasn't going to work. So I slowly let go of that dream. But I still really clung on to wanting to own books. So I would give away books that I actively didn't like or DNF'd, but I would keep everything else. Whereas now, I try to be a bit stricter and only keep books that were like a 4 or 5 stars. I don't need to keep the books that were just a bit meh. And that's like a real switch because it was such a strong desire in me to own every book. I wanted this massive library. So I don't know what changed other than the fact I lived in small houses, so I didn't have room. But also I realised, like, you can't see the full bookshelves behind me now, but I have a lot of books in this room. I have a lot of books, and these are all books that were 4 or 5 stars. So I don't need to also keep the mediocre and the bad books. Like I can build up a library of books that I love, and how great is that? I think that's where it came from. I watched someone, and I can't remember who, I watched some booktuber talk about wanting to only keep their favourite books. I'm not quite that strict, but they loved the idea of owning a library fully of books that they adored. So that if people came round and wanted to borrow a book or like wanted a book recommendation, they could just point to their shelf and be like, this is my book recommendation. And I thought that was so cool that I like half adapted it. Question 4, how long would you spend in a bookshop on a standard visit? I would happily spend hours there. I so love being around books. It's something that's so lovely how happy I get from being around books. And considering I have all these books in my house, it's not like I'm starved for books. And when I used to be able to go into an office, there were books absolutely everywhere. But I never got bored of it, or I never even got used to it. Like, it just makes me so happy. When I used to work in the office at Pan Mac, I would be there with the books all day. I would come home, and on the way home, I go past Waterstones, and sometimes I would just literally walk in, just to walk in, look around, and smile, and then leave again. Because being around books, like, brings my soul to life. Question 5. How much time per day do you actually spend reading? Okay, ouch. I've just spent this whole time talking about how obsessed I am with books, and the answer to how much time I spend reading is really low. It used to be high. It used to be like 2 hours at least a day reading because I would read my whole commute to work, my whole commute back, like half of my lunch break. But now I don't have a commute. And on my lunch break, I walk Hippo, so I don't really do any reading then. So it's actually like very low now. I read less now that I'm stuck in my house than I did before. I think also it fluctuates, so I probably would read for at least like 20 minutes a day every day, but then sometimes on weekends I will read for like, well, 24 hours, as you guys have seen. But even if I'm not doing some crazy booktube challenge, I could easily read for like 5 hours in a row and then just get up and not read for the rest of the weekend, you know. Question 6 is, where does the task picking up a book appear on your daily to-do list? So it's funny, I was just saying in the last question that my routine has changed. I no longer can read on my commute and stuff. So it's almost like it is more of a to-do list item now. And I would say it definitely appears at bedtime. So I've been really trying to reduce screen time. So at 9 o'clock, I take my melatonin, I turn off all the screens, and then after that I try and snuggle down and read. Like read on the sofa for a bit, then go up to bed and read in bed for a bit. So yeah, it is kind of a to-do list item in the evening. Question number 7 is, how many books do you reckon you own in total? But then it says include ebooks. I can't include ebooks. I have no idea. I could not tell you if it's hundreds or thousands. It's definitely at least hundreds. It's probably thousands, because before the most recent Kindle I had, I first got a Kindle like 8 years ago. So I still technically own all of those ebooks, and you know, you can download free ones, so there was like no limit. So we're not including ebooks. How many books do I own? Shall I count? No, but I can vaguely count. Hang on. I'm going to count one shelf and then multiply it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm counting with my fingers because I can't even bother to turn around. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Okay, there were 21 books on that shelf. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 shelves. Was 21 times 12, calculator, 252. So there's probably around 250 books on this bookcase. I also have another like 45 on this trolley. I also have another probably 60 over there. I also have like 30 downstairs. I haven't been adding as I went. We're talking like 400 books, roughly 400 books. And then 1,000 ebooks. Question 8, approximately how often do you bring up books in conversation? Approximately as often as I breathe. I bring up books all the time, including in totally inappropriate ways. So RG is like, he's very fact-based. He reads non-fiction books, and he will be like talking to me about some scientific thing, and I'll be like, yes, I know all about that because in my book, the main character could time travel, and he'll be like, that wasn't a real person though. So yeah, I bring up books all the time. Any situation, I've read a book with people in that same situation, and so I can totally relate. Like, I just feel like books are my entire outlook on life. Question 9, what is the biggest book you have finished reading? Was it A Little Life? A Little Life had like 720 pages. I have it right here. Here it is. He's a chunky boy. He's beautiful. I loved him. Question 10. Is there a book you had to get your hands on against all odds? Searched, bookstore, online digging, stalked author, etc. Yes, there is. Buckle in for this story. So, a few years ago, many years ago, in fact, my dad gave me a book. I have it here. It's downstairs. Can I bother to stand up? Is it worth it for the story? Yeah, I'm going to stand up. Okay, I'm back. So, for a Christmas present probably about 10 years ago, my dad gave me this book. As you can see, a very old, battered, well-loved book. It is a collection. It's actually a magazine, it says. So they must have had like a series of these called Suspense. And it's a collection of stories, including, you can see right here on the cover, H.C. Alton was my grandfather, and he had published a short story in here. My grandfather died 10 years before I was even born. So obviously this is like a very, very special, precious book to my father who gave it to me. So it was very moving and meaningful that he gave me this book. And about a year after he gave it to me, we moved house and I lost it. I could not find it anywhere. I must have turned my room inside out and I could not find it. And I tried asking my dad pretty gently, like, did you take that book out of my room by any chance to look at it? And he was like, no, I haven't seen it. And I was like, okay, no worries, no reason. I know where else it is. And ran off to find it and could not find it. So I was completely panicking. And I decided I needed to get a new copy of this book to give back to my dad. Because even though he had given this one to me, it's still a very precious object. I didn't think he'd be pleased for it to have been lost. But you try and buy this book. You try and buy the March 1961 edition of Suspense magazine. Like, you can't get that on Amazon. You can't get that anywhere. I can't even remember the lengths I went to get this book. I do know I ended up finding it. I was like on internet forums trying to track this down, and I found someone who had a copy of it, and they were in Australia, and I had to get them to ship me a copy of this book. It was slightly different. It looked slightly different. It was still the same, and it still had my grandfather's story in it, but I think maybe it was from New Zealand, and like the currency was New Zealand currency. I forget what that was. So it was a slightly different version, but it was close enough, and it took me months to get this book, and I had to pay so much money in shipping. It took ages for it to arrive because it was being shipped all the way from New Zealand. It was like the hardest detective work I have ever done in my life. And anyway, this book arrived, and so for my dad's next Father's Day, I think, I gave him this copy of the book, and he opened it really surprised and was like, "But I have this book downstairs." And it turns out he had taken it. That time I'd asked him, he just wasn't thinking. He had taken it, and he did have it downstairs. And he was so confused by the present because he was like, "But I have this book downstairs and I gave it to you. I meant to give it back." So anyway, so this is the version that he originally gave me. We swapped books. He gave it back to me. I gave him the one from New Zealand, which I didn't need to buy, and it was a whole thing. But now we have 2 copies, which is good for the next time I lose it. Question 11. Is there a book you struggled to finish because you refused to DNF? I mean, honestly, I am like a queen of the DNF. I will DNF anything. I don't even care. I do not understand the arguments for not DNFing. Any argument you try and give me, I will think that you're weird. Like, I will think that you've misunderstood the point of reading. Unless you're reading it for school or for university or for your job or for some reason where you have to read the book, fine, that's different. But if you're just reading a book for pleasure and you tell yourself that you have to finish it, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? No one finishes TV shows because they think they have to because they watched the first episode. Like, that's so strange. There are lots of things that people have disagreements over, and the answer is just everyone's entitled to their own way of doing things. That's fine. But this is not one of them. DNF that book or shut the fuck up. People are probably going to unsubscribe from that last statement. I'm so sorry. I just don't understand not DNFing. Number 12. What are some of your main book goals for the year? So I definitely, as every year, want to improve the diversity of my reading list. I am roughly trying to make it a goal to at least alternate between only reading from a white author every other book. So that's like a conscious way of making sure that I'm seeking out other stories. I improve every year on how diverse my reading list is, but it's still not quite where I want it to be, so we keep on striving. Question 13. Have you ever had the privilege of converting someone into a reader by inspiration or your incessant nagging? Well, I don't know. Like, a lot of my friends and family already are readers. That's something that we all share, which is great. My sister didn't used to be a reader, but it definitely was not me who converted her. She did not like it when I kept trying to make her read books. So she just, I don't know, converted herself into a reader at some point. But I mean, I do sometimes get really lovely comments on YouTube from people who've said that I like reignited their love of reading, people who'd kind of gone into a slump and hadn't read for a few years and then were inspired to start reading again. And that is so nice. I cannot tell you like how nice those comments are to receive. They mean so much. So to that extent, yes. But I don't think I've ever converted someone from a not reader into a reader. I'm still working on Argy. By the end of our lives together, he will be a reader. We will get there in the end. And finally, question 14. Describe what books mean to you in 5 words. I like them more than... Nope. Literally my whole life. The best things in the... Why is this hard? They are what life is about. Why is everything 6 words? They go good with wine. Is that the best I can do? Wow. That's embarrassing. Can you guys put a 5-word statement below that describes what books mean to you? Because why can I not think of anything good? And with that, that is the end of the video. So thank you for watching yet another Drinking by My Shelf video. Hit that subscribe button, give it a thumbs up, all of that jazz, and I will see you guys soon. Bye! Someone just screamed over my outro. Are you okay, love?